If you've had no encounter with the family court, then you may not be aware of the secret world of the contact centre. Contact centres is where parents get to see their children, parents who are estranged from their children. So we wanted to take this video in order to take you into the world of the contact centre. All the contact centres in the UK are run under the auspices of the NACCC, the National Association for Child Contact Centres. They're a charity, a very worthy charity, and anybody who wants to set up a contact centre as a private enterprise must be registered and accredited by the NACCC. So contact centres, what are they? Let's describe one. It's a bit like a school, it's a bit like a kindergarten, it's a bit like a mother and toddler group. You're going to find a very community centre type feel to it, with toys, with a kitchen area where mum or dad can make themselves a coffee or a cup of tea. So it's that kind of environment. That's what you're walking into in a contact centre. As I say, so they are managed and accredited by the National Association of Child Contact Centres. Because they are a charity, they receive no direct funding. They are funded by donations. They are funded by private enterprise, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, about the cost of going to a contact centre. And obviously they have staff, and a large majority of those staff are volunteers, unpaid. They're giving their time because they just believe it's a worthy thing to do, to be involved with parents who find themselves in difficult situations. But equally so, there are also a number of paid staff, paid professionals, usually coming from a social work background or a teaching background, who find themselves working in contact centres. When a court orders that a parent can see their children in a contact centre, they order one of two variations of contact. They either offer them supervised contact or unsupervised contact. Supervised contact means that you'll find yourself in a room with your children, usually for an hour or 2 hours max, and there will be a member of staff from the contact centre who is within earshot of you. They are listening to what you say, they're listening to how you interact with your children, they listen to what you say to your children, and they listen to what your children are saying to you. And they're doing that for two reasons. Number one, they're trying to understand what the interaction is like. They're trying to understand that your children are comfortable, that your children are as happy as they're going to be about being in that environment. But secondly, they're trying to understand that you're not saying anything, if you're the parent, you're not saying anything that is inappropriate to those children. Now, in this multicultural society that we live, obviously we often find ourselves in contact centre with Polish speakers here from the UK, or Asian dialect speakers, so Urdu, Punjabi, or whatever it may be. So when you're given a court order to take yourself into a contact centre in order to see your children, if English is not your first language, and you speak to your children in your native tongue, be that Polish or Romanian or Italian or Punjabi or Urdu or Mapuri or whatever it may be, you will be instructed by the contact centre often that you must bring with you an interpreter. And the reason you're bringing that interpreter is not in order that the conversation between you and your children can go on, it's in order that the interpreter can tell the contact centre staff what you are saying and what the children are saying as you go along, in order to assume that there is no inappropriate conversation. A part of the order, apart from supervised contact, is unsupervised contact. And in unsupervised contact, it's exactly the same scenario. You're in a room with your children, enjoying some time, but the member of staff will occasionally pop their head in the door just to make sure that you're okay. They are not there to monitor what is being said between you and the children. You are unsupervised, but you can't leave the building in either scenario, either in supervised or unsupervised. You cannot leave the building with the children, unless the court awards you outdoor supervised contact, which means if the contact centre that you have nominated to go to has a garden area, and if the contact centre has sufficient staff available, you will be able to go outside with your children into the garden area, and you have to stay in the confines of the garden area, with a supervised member of staff just keeping an eye on you. Sadly, contact centres are not free. So parents who find themselves ordered to go to a contact centre in order to see their children are also going to have to find the funds to pay for it. The average contact centre in the United Kingdom is £50 an hour. Some are more. There are a few, very few, that are less. But £50 an hour is about the average. So if you are awarded you get to see your children for 2 hours per session, then that is £100 that you are going to pay in order to be able to access the contact centre. Now, during the course of this video, we're going to use some real experience from real parents who've shared with us, and we thank them for that. You'll only hear their voices, you won't see their faces, you won't know who they are. We don't intend to identify them. But they give us some real views on what their experience of contact centre is like, and we're going to thank them for that. So, having understood the background to what a contact centre looks like and the structure to what a contact centre looks like, what we want to do now is we want to delve in a little bit more detail into some of the issues surrounding being in a contact centre.
I've spent almost 3 years at contact centres where I've been seeing my 2 daughters, and this was at the back of facing some out of the blue allegations that actually removed the children from my care, because I was the primary carer before. And I was at the beginning I was very upset that I would have to see my children in a supervised contact, because I was used to obviously having direct contact with them, and also because I had a professional job where I worked with hard to reach, looked after children. I'd obviously seen that. I was just quite surprised straight after allegations had been made, and also after there had been police involvement, and there was no and those cases were closed, that had to continue in the family court system, even based on no evidence. So it was a lot to take in at the start, but when these sessions started and commenced, it was very difficult, because immediately I think the thing I can remember the most is the supervisor was very judgmental. So they're obviously referred about the case, and in my case, that Dad obviously couldn't be left alone with the children. And it made it very difficult for me to kind of try and maintain that relationship or that strong rapport I had with my girls. For example, my daughters would be asking me questions about things like about the home they used to live at, and about the guinea pigs, and in one of the reports, the supervisor, without telling me, she actually told me that it was inappropriate for me to talk about the past or the previous living arrangements, which again I was just honestly answering some basic questions from my girls. I wasn't directing anything towards the opposite parent. So it just felt like it was one-way traffic, and Mum would also speak to the supervisor before and after and raise concerns, like, for example, my girls had got upset over contact, and so it just felt like anything could be manipulated. And I think there has to be definitely more awareness or training or education given to these supervisors to understand that some of these cases, and particularly in mine, there was allegations made on both sides. And I can also remember it was a very stressing experience for me and my daughters that on the first session I got to see my eldest daughter. She didn't attend the first session because she was ill, according to Mum, and actually at that first session my youngest daughter told me that my daughter was ill due to not being able to see me, and she'd been crying for me all the time. And the supervisor and she was paid to do a report, she didn't record any of that information that was clearly shared in that supervised environment, that could obviously support my case and showed that clearly both children wanted a relationship with both parents, particularly me, and that's obviously the main aim of the court system. And when my daughter did actually see me for the first session, she was fine throughout the session, but at the end of the session, when I was about to leave, she refused to leave, and she said that she wants to go home with me. And eventually I left. She got very hysterical, refused to leave, crying, refusing. She was actually pushing people away from the supervisor and grandma who actually came to collect her. And again, the supervisor didn't record that where she clearly said she missed me and she wanted to stay with me and she preferred to stay with Dad. But generally, contact centres, for me personally, it does feel a bit like a prison environment where you're in this environment. I know there's toys and stuff in it, but it doesn't give the children any familiarisation. It's just you, and particularly you feel like you're treading on eggshells. Like I explained with even the way when I felt like I was talking in a child-friendly way and answering questions honestly and ensuring that I wouldn't make any comments or express any particular feelings, how I felt the court case was going or the allegations made against me or that one parent has done this purposely. I was being very positive towards the mother and said things will work itself out and just like keep your faith and you'll get to see Daddy more. It's just giving that reassurance that even things like that I was told I was unrealistic so I think it makes it very, very difficult. So, but generally, I think contact centres, they probably do serve a purpose in allowing children to rekindle the relationship, but I think there needs to be better, like a lot of contact centres are run by volunteers, particularly if it's supported contact, and I think there does need to be like real professional people what are going to be objective, aren't going to show bias, and to just allow it to be a loving and also just prepare the parent when he comes in and give them some advice, because parents can easily say something with what's going on with going through a very vicious court system, might say something unintentionally that might come across offending, but I think they need to be prepped beforehand, because most parents aren't going in there to try and lose contact, and it does feel that you're actually under the microscope again, like you are in the process, and people are just trying to find things to actually say you can't be with your children, and some little things. So if I say to the children, you've got two homes now, if that's inappropriate, I feel like I'm showing a very co-parent approach, but the supervisor thought that I shouldn't be mentioning my house at all. So if the girls are asking about that, do I say no, you'll never come back to your family home where you was born again? I think contact centres need to be re-looked at. I think they need to be professional centres that actually are married up. They connect with the court system itself, where they can allow proper assessments to take place, whatever's necessary, but not to leave people in there just for 2 or 3 years like I've experienced and then be to no progressing. Because at my current case, it feels like I might have to do supervised contact maybe for another further year or even more. And so for 4 years, having your children away from familiar surroundings that they continue to request. So I don't know, alternatives could be maybe having social workers, maybe having CAFCAS, or provide people who can actually come to a home or come to a different environment that doesn't feel like a very institutionalised centre, almost like a prison. I think there's loads of different ways it could be approached to just allow the children, because it also creates the children on edge, these environments as well. But yeah, I definitely think it needs to be looked at. And my experiences, like I'm very grateful for seeing my children, because I know lots of parents haven't, especially with the sort of allegations that were made against me, and I managed to get that emergency hearing. However, yeah, I feel there needs to be a lot more investment in contact centres from the court or CAFCAS, and professionalise them, and they are proper environments that allow parents to develop their parenting skills again, and to rekindle the relationships with the children, and allow fully progression, and whatever the supervisor sees in those environments, they can actually progress their contact, and not just allow CAFCAS to make a decision when they only rush a report through and barely see the parents and the children, but like actually someone who's experienced. These supervisors should be coming to court and actually telling them about the relationship they see, and telling them what the children see. But it just seems that the supervisors cover their own back as well, and don't actually want to share specific things. So there's no like judgment being made for them, or they don't have to make any decision making that will influence future contact. So yeah, I feel that there could be a lot more done.
So if safeguarding is the issue behind taking people into contact centres, so let me tell you what that doesn't mean. What it doesn't mean is that parents can choose how or even when they see their children. Normally, it means that you can see your children for 2 hours every fortnight. Just 2 hours every fortnight. Just take a minute to imagine that. You can only see your children for 2 hours in every 14-day period. For those of you who are watching with a passion for numbers, that means that in a year, a whole year, you will see your children for 52 hours out of the 8,736 hours that are available in that year. That means that less than 0.5% of the time available, of the hours available in that year, will be afforded to you as the estranged parent. And that means the other parent, the parent who has the residential care responsibility, has the children for 99.5% of the time. The contact centre order given by the court will stay in place until the court replaces it with something else. When we've spoken to parents about contact centres, the theme which runs through all of those conversations is that although they're grateful for the contact, they do feel like they're in a prison. That the children arrive to see them and leave without them. So what if they were in prison? So what if those estranged parents who currently are ordered by the court that they can only see their children in a contact centre, what if they were in prison? What do the government guidelines say about prisoners receiving visitors? Prisoners getting the opportunity to see their children. Let's bear in mind that our parent, the parent that we're concerning ourselves with, gets to see their children for 2 hours every fortnight. But now we have a prisoner on remand. Now that means that they're in prison and they are waiting for trial. And that trial can take many months, mainly because of the congestion within the court system. But how many hours a fortnight will that prisoner get to see their children through visits? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's 6. A remand prisoner is allowed 3 visits of 1 hour duration per week. So that is 6 hours of visitations per fortnight, versus our estranged parent who is in the family court prison system, who is getting 2 hours. The remand prisoner gets 3.5% of the available hours each year to see his children or her children. The remand prisoner also gets an element of choice as to when he and she can have their visits. The imprisoned parent gets told it'll be every other Thursday at 4 o'clock, every other Sunday at 9 a.m, every other Wednesday, or whatever it may be. And they must then make their life fit around those 2 vital hours they've been afforded by the court. There's lots of research on the impact of absent parents on children. There's lots of learned minds giving their view on how adverse the impact is on children of not having both parents to interact with. There is less research, but nevertheless equally important, on how forcing parents to be absent from their children's lives impacts upon the child, but also how it impacts upon the child-parent bond. Children associate appointments with something unpleasant, don't they? Just think about that. What appointments do children have to attend? It's the dentist, it's the doctor, it's the optician. Well, now add to that every Wednesday after school they're going to drive to a part of town or even another town they never normally go to. They're going to enter a building that has very clear, visible security features to it, and may have a few other children that they don't know, nor will they ever know, nor will they have anything in common with, and they will wait in a room in order to spend time with their dad or their mum. And their dad or their mum will be pleased to see them because it's their 2 hours of allocated contact. But there'll always be a sense of sadness that the children can't explain. There'll always be something behind mum and dad's eyes that they just can see but don't understand. Oh, and a stranger is going to stand close enough to overhear everything that's being said. Now, as the weeks go by, the children, because they're children, they're going to lose their enthusiasm about going to visit the other parent. It's too regimented, it's too restrictive, it's too repetitive. Because it's not how parents interact with their children, it's not natural, it's not spontaneous, it's not how it should be. As the weeks roll by and contact is limited and controlled, the parent-child bond is tested and very slowly eroded. The parent has no impact on the child's life. Once the child has left the contact centre, and by virtue of that left the parent, the imprisoned parent has no say in what the child will wear, what they will eat, what they will watch, what they will laugh about, what they will cry about, what they will see, and what they will miss. The parental responsibility is neutralised. The parent is effectively redundant. Now, don't get me wrong, because I'm actually an advocate of the contact centre network. And a strange parent needs to have a forum, a safe space to try and maintain a relationship with their children. The issue we have here at McKenzie Picave is twofold. Firstly, seeing someone for just 2 hours a fortnight is just not enough. It's simply not enough. That parent is lost to their children, given that it may already have been a few months of absence before the court has even afforded them that contact centre access. They're now going to try and make up for that lost time with just 120 minutes in a controlled, sterile environment out of a possible 20,000 minutes which is available in that 14-day period. And that's just not a workable proposition. Secondly, contact centres are under-resourced, they're underfunded. There should be a bright, engaging environment for children and parents to meet and reconnect, but instead they all too often have a feel of institutes, with tired decor, broken toys and the grime of a public space which dozens of people have passed through each and every day. They're often staffed by volunteers, so they can't ask too much because you're not going to get too much. People find themselves in contact centres for all sorts of reasons, and whilst how they got there prompts 100 different answers, why they are there prompts only one. It's to see their children, to see the children they love, and to see the children they dearly miss. Hope you liked that video. Remember to hit the like button, and press that subscribe button, and remember to ding that bell. If If Danny Picave Counselling is something that interests you, perhaps you're going to like that video, so why don't you watch that next? Failing that, if McKenzie Picave, our family law support service, is something that is going to be of some use to you, perhaps you want to watch that video. Or failing that, just get in touch, and we'll see you next time.